Mr. Sekulow. There are approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country right now, correct?
Yeah, that's the number I understand, yes.
Okay. And Congress appropriates resources to the Department of Homeland Security, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those resources are used in part to undertake the deportation of undocumented immigrants, true?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the Department of Homeland Security does not have the resources based on what Congress has allocated to it to deport those 11 million undocumented immigrants, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. So since we've established factually there's no way that DHS can deport 11 million undocumented immigrants because it does not have the resources to do so, it's got to establish priorities as it relates to deportation, true?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Now, who actually has the authority to establish those priorities? Isn't it the Secretary of Homeland Security and therefore the President who appoints them?
The Secretary of Homeland Security is authorized on a case-by-case basis. Prosecutors are authorized on a case-by-case basis. That's markedly different from a group exemption.
Right. So, but we can't, first of all, this is not a group exemption, and I think that's just been a blanket misrepresentation. I think many of my colleagues have actually corrected it, but there's at least 5 factors that individuals will have to prove, right? Present since 2010.
Right.
Documentation will be required to demonstrate that. You can't just show up and make that representation.
That puts you in the class.
Reclaiming my time, I'm not finished.
I'm sorry.
Qualifying child. You got to demonstrate that.
Correct.
Birth certificate, perhaps, passport, whatever the case may be. Documentation. Continuing presence. Again, it's going to require documentation. 4, not an enforcement priority. And then 5, of course, you have to pass a criminal background check. Those are all individual factors that will be assessed by the Department of Homeland Security to determine eligibility, correct?
To determine if you're eligible for the class, that does not constitute an individual determination.
Okay. Well, we disagree on that. Now, in terms of, sir?
Yes, sir.
I'm behind the dais. You're answering questions.
Yep.
We appreciate whatever authority you are bringing
I appreciate
to this discussion, but you are not the definitive authority. In fact, you know, what the Supreme Court has said, and let's touch on that. You know, the Arizona v. United States case has been brought up. Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that this case in any way contributes to the debate as to whether the President has discretion to defer deportation?
No, SB 10, the conclusion of the Supreme Court was, of course, that the Federal Government has the authority and the States cannot override immigration authority that's federally enunciated.
Right, okay. But Justice Kennedy stated in the majority opinion, a principal feature of the removal system is the broad discretion exercised by immigration officials. Federal officials, as an initial matter, must decide whether it makes sense to pursue removal at all, correct?
Yes.
That's what Justice Kennedy stated.
Federal officials.
Okay, now, we've already established that the resources don't exist for the Department of Homeland Security to remove all 11 million undocumented immigrants, true?
Yes.
So immigration officials, it seems to me, consistent with this Supreme Court decision, which was written in 2012, on immigration, not on FDA matters, not on other collateral matters, on immigration, establishes clearly that the Department of Homeland Security and its President has the ability to make priority determinations related to deportation. Isn't that clear?
Over a State determination. It involved the constitutionality of SB 10. This is a very different situation, with due respect, Congressman, to a situation where there's going to be a blanket creation of a class that is now protected outside of congressional authority.
Okay.
The answer to your question is pass a law.
Since President, I agree with that, the President agrees with that. Since President Eisenhower in 1956, 39 occasions there's been executive action related to deferred enforcement connection with immigration, correct?
Yes.
39 occasions,
Yep.
right? It happened under Eisenhower and Kennedy, related to approximately 900,000 Cubans.
Right.
It happened under Ford with approximately 200,000 Vietnamese. Happened under President Reagan, I think as it relates to approximately 200,000 Nicaraguans. Happened under George Bush, 43, as it relates to Liberians. And of course, it happened under the first President Bush with respect to 1.5 million undocumented immigrants, correct?
Yes.
But you don't believe this president has the authority?
I'm not sure. I've stated it very clearly, I thought, that I'm not convinced in all of those cases. Some of those cases were involving foreign policy issues where the president does have authority. But I've stated consistently in my testimony that I believe that, especially as it related to the situation with President Bush, 41, as well as with President Reagan, that I think it is constitutionally suspect, as I think this is as well.
Right. My time has expired. I yield
Thank you,
back.
Congressman.